What a program I have for you today. The Republicans did have a sort of debate last night. We're going to be joined by Luke Vargas from the site of the debate a little bit later in the show. So I'm not ignoring that. We just have a larger discussion planned about that. What I want to start with today is President Barack Obama's new climate action plan, which is by many estimates the strongest action ever on climate change by a U.S. president. Hundreds of businesses have issued their support for the plan. That gives me actually some skepticism about the plan, but I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later. The rules were announced yesterday. They're designed to cut emissions from power plants. You might remember there was sort of an original proposal along these lines about a year ago from President Obama. And compared to that proposal, the overall plan now has been strengthened overall even more. But short-term concessions are being made to the states that are particularly reliant on the very, very dirty, polluting coal energy. This is of particular importance overall because the United States is the world's second biggest emitter of carbon after China. The plan is going to significantly increase power production from wind and solar. It's going to move away from coal power. The final rules call for a 32% cut in carbon emissions from power plants by 2030 based on 2005 levels, which is up from the initial proposal, which called for a 30% reduction. But states will only have to comply by 2022 rather than 2020 and will be able to submit their plans on how they're going to meet the targets by 2018 instead of 2017. So, broad strokes, more strict in terms of how much carbon reduction must be done, a little less strict on how soon states have to submit plans about meeting the guidelines and put in place the plan to get down to that level of carbon reduction. CO2 emissions from power plants already fell 15% between 2005 and 2013, which actually means that the United States is already halfway to the target. And there's sort of two ways to look at that. One way is this is going to be easily obtainable because we're already halfway there. The other way to look at it is if it's going to be so easy, then we should really have made the target even higher or lower as the case may be. This is not going to happen without pretty serious challenges. The big fossil fuel companies are not going to, sit in a circle playing ukuleles and singing Kumbaya. There's a wave of legal opposition that is anticipated from big utilities, from states that oppose the plan. Understandably, it would likely be the states that derive a lot of money from dirty fossil fuel energy production. And yesterday, Republican presidential hopefuls were very quick to voice opposition, saying that the entire plan would be economically damaging. Huge boost to wind and solar power, which also upset the natural gas industry. However, I want to get back to what I said before. Let me give you some of the company names that are supporting this. Unilever, L'Oreal, Levi Strauss, Staples, eBay, Nestle. Something about Nestle supporting this plan makes me skeptical. And that's just my cynical nature, I think. The idea that if big businesses like these are backing this, there must be some kind of kickback or something happening somewhere. But it could just be that businesses are realizing that there is a terrible economic cost of coastal cities risking being underwater as a result of climate change derived from happening as a result of human activity on Earth. Maybe there is a reasonable explanation. I don't know. That is really what I'm curious about. When you hear this long list of big corporations that supports this plan, do you think that's really great? They are just supporting it because it's the right thing? Or is there a skeptical or cynical element to your reaction as well? And if so, what do you think the underhanded reasons for signing on to something like this would be for some of these big corporations?